Hello, it is time for a creative goals check-in. This time last year I posted a video setting out my photography goals, I'm going to say creative goals, but they were all photography based for 2022. And this has been a lovely prompt for me to check up on whether I met those goals and think about what I'd like to do for this year. So first of all, we're going to check in on the goals I set last year. The video is linked, so you can go and watch that if you'd really like to. It's only a very short video. But essentially, we had exploring more mixed media, creative, darkroom techniques, and things like cyanotype and anthotypes. I didn't get any further with anthotype printing, but I did finally manage to try cyanotypes, and I did quite a lot of mixed media this year, which I'm very pleased about. One of the things that I had wanted to do was work with things like framing and double exposures within the print itself. I didn't do as much of that as I would have liked to have seen by this point. But I'm quite happy with some of the stuff that I did do. I feel quite good about that. I also wanted to try pinhole photography, and that is another one that I checked off this year. The next one was trying out some creative and experimental developing. I had completely forgotten about this goal. As I was working through the year, I completely forgot I'd set this. The one that I had very specifically thought of doing was bleach bypass processing, which is C41 developing. So you do it at a much cooler temperature, you don't use bleach, and so what you get is deeper blacks, and you get more of a sort of grungy feel to your photos. At least that's what I understand from what I've read about it. I never actually managed to try that one. The only experimental developing that I actually did was when I had to guess developing FPP's Let It Snow, and then it was so hot in this room that I had to go and try and cool it down, and I decided to just put the ice straight into the developer instead of like sitting it in an ice bath, and it worked fine. Like, as long as you're not too worried, just try it, it's fine. And then the final goal that I set for myself this year was to scan some very old negatives that I'd received from my grandmother-in-law. That's something that I started this year. I haven't finished doing it, and it's mostly because the digital side of stuff is the bit that I don't really enjoy doing. So yeah, so I still have 3 lots of negatives to finish scanning. I now have the correct adapters for my pixelator, so I can do those ones that were of different formats. But I still have the most curly negatives to try and do. Perhaps I'll film that because I think that's going to be a bit of an adventure in itself. And then some colour images as well, which I'm still learning how to do colour. I'm still learning how to convert colour, but yeah. So that's how we got on with last year's goals. Let's move on to my goals for the upcoming year. And please do leave your goals in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys are up to as well. Goal number 1. I want to continue playing in the darkroom. The goal I set last year of trying out mixed media, trying out different printing techniques, that's something I really want to work with this year and something I want to keep exploring. I think my emphasis is always going to be on playing and exploring and experimenting. Like, that is just my favourite part of photography. It's not necessarily the final picture, it's the process. It's trying out new things. So that is a big goal of mine, is to never let myself slide back into wanting to produce images, because I have done that. Like, you know, in years past, it has been about working through as many rolls of film as possible and seeing what happens in each roll of film, which is, I suppose, experimenting in itself. But yeah, I want to work with the negatives that I already have. I want to work with different media. I want to just keep having fun and trying out new things. So that's goal number 1. Goal number 2, as an extension from last year's goals as well, is I have in my mind a big project that I want to complete based on cyanotype printing. I can't reveal too many details because what I want to make is supposed to be a gift for someone. So I don't want to reveal that because I want it to be a surprise. But it's going to require me to learn a lot more about cyanotype, to experiment a lot more, and to try out some different techniques within cyanotype. So I'm going to film it all. I'm going to film my learning process, because after all, that's what this channel is all about. It's about learning and experimenting. So I'm going to be filming as I try out. I do have the chemicals. I have been starting to do my own cyanotypes after having tried out Rachel from Little Vintage Photography's kit that she sells. So yes, I do now have my own chemicals. Sorry, you can see some, I've been sitting in front of some of my paintings as well. So there's lots here that I've been working on. Can you see? A year. So I'm hoping that sort of mid 2023, I will be able to present to you, my viewers, the final cyanotype project. But as I say, I'm going to bring you along on the journey. I'm going to keep experimenting, and I'm going to see where that takes me. Goal number 3 is I want to continue exploring outside of photography. So I find it very difficult because I call myself an analog photographer, but really I think I'm much more of a mixed media artist, I suppose. I find it's weird to call myself an artist because I don't feel that I'm very good at painting, that I'm very good at drawing, or that I'm an artist in any way, but I love different creative outlets. So this year I have tried various things. I have made my own candles. I've had a go at that. I've made my own books. I did a little bookbinding kit to have a go at bookbinding. I have long been a cross stitcher, and I'm currently working on a big piece for my mother of Henry VIII. Yeah, I've got my sketchbooks here. We've got watercolour, fine liners, gouache. So yeah, I like to dabble in many things, including as well creative writing and things like that. So I'd like to continue exploring in some of the medias I've mentioned. Some other ones that I'd quite like to have a go at are pottery and also lino printing as well. And all of these, I really love it when I can tie it back into my photography and my printing. So over here we've got some of my watercolours on prints, and this one is my embroidery on prints as well. Yeah, so it's just reminding myself that it's not always photography, sometimes it's other things, but in general it always leads back to my photography. We're about to have a change of location. Okay, so goal number 4 is going to be building my book box offering. This is something I've really loved working on through 2022. Essentially, after I've read a book, I brainstorm some ideas about themes that are in the book or specific characters, locations, anything like that. And then I look through my old prints and through my archive of images, so not prints I've already made, but my negatives and the things that I've scanned. And I try to make links between them, and then I come up with a mystery book in a box with one of my homemade prints in it. For anyone who's already received some, I also throw in some extras. Like I usually put in one of my Instax photos. I write a handwritten letter to anyone who purchases with my thoughts on the book and why I've chosen the print that I have, and then you can choose to read that letter either before or after you've read the book, depending on how you want to do it. And yeah, this is something that was actually born out of doing my Project 52 last year. So the idea of the Project 52 was to take images from my archive and use them in different ways. Sometimes I was working digitally and creating things like collages, and then sometimes it was working on them in the darkroom, like things like the mixed media. So again, a lot of that was born out of the Project 52 as well. I started out trying to make book covers for my books, like measuring out the dimensions of the book itself, where you'd need to have the flaps to go around it. So for instance, on this book where you've got the flaps that go around the book, like I was trying to measure the books and then make my own covers for them using my own images, but unfortunately that took a lot more digital skill than I have and wanted to exert, basically. And that's when it evolved into this idea of the book boxes. So I've got a couple on display here. Those are for sale on my website, which is analogholly.com. Yeah, it's just something I really loved making this year. So even though the Project 52 had to be cut short, I went back to university basically, and I have no time for anything extra. And I wanted to focus more on taking pictures, working in the darkroom, than specifically working on a Project 52, if that makes any sense. But this is something that has been born out of that I really want to continue into the new year. I want to continue making them because I've read some amazing books in the last year. And I've also been looking into how I can create the book boxes with brand new books. So at the moment, almost all of them, the two, or this one here and this one here, I've actually managed to source brand new books directly from the publisher to go into the book boxes, which is really cool. I think it's really cool, and it's something I'd like to explore more with other books and prints that I want to make. But it's a cost thing. It's whether it's within my budget because I don't make any money from this. I just enjoy doing it. So yeah, so I'd love it if you would support me by buying a book box or even just a print. I do sell the individual prints as well. But yeah, those are up on my website, and that's something I want to continue into the next year. My final goal, my 5th goal, and that is not a tangible goal. This is a much more mental health based goal. So even though I have just talked about wanting to do this cyanotype project and to make more book boxes for my website, this next goal is a bit in opposition to that, and that is stop feeling like I need to produce stuff. Stop feeling like I need to sell myself and sell what I'm doing. But linked back to that first goal I mentioned of wanting to experiment and wanting to have fun in the darkroom, I really want the emphasis for myself to be on having fun and on experimenting and not on the output. Inevitably, when you share what you're creating through any social media outlet, whether that's TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, there is going to be some pressure on you to perform. You know, is your channel growing quick enough? Are you putting out enough content? Are you regular enough? Is what you're putting out there high enough quality? Are you marketing your content well? Because unfortunately these days, if you want to do well on YouTube, it's not just about creating the videos and putting them out there. It's about all the analytics. It's about promoting that through other means as well, which to me saps the joy out of it. But it goes from being a hobby into a business. And I was going to use the word chore here instead of business. You know, this idea of drudgery and taking the joy out of it. But actually I think business is a better word, because it stops being just about the joy of it and it starts being about how much money you're making from it, how fast are you growing, and tracking the sorts of things that businesses have to track when they're trying to grow themselves and their income. And I think we have to remember that when it is just a hobby, growth and all those sorts of analytics around it don't matter. And we kind of touched on this when I was chatting with Megan in the interview that I did with her the interview was a few months ago, but the video was a couple of weeks ago. And we talked about this idea that when you get inspired to do something and you're seeing other people doing it, say you're looking for inspiration on Instagram, and all these people that are coming up that are being advertised to you who are doing these things tend to be monetized. They tend to be sponsored or you know, there are ads being placed on their accounts, or, you know, there's some way they have monetized their hobby. And that becomes the mindset. Like, if you're going to be doing something, are you earning money from it? And I feel like the pressure for this comes from different places. Number one, the platform, whichever one you're using, there is pressure from that platform for you to do various things. So on Instagram, it might be posting daily or posting reels or posting specific types of content that Instagram likes to promote. Certainly when you look at videos for YouTube around how to improve your YouTube channel, a lot of it is around making sure that you're posting weekly or that you're posting on a certain regular basis. Some people like to post 3 times a week, which I think is madness and is really not very achievable when you're like a photography account, especially an analog photography account when the whole point is that it's slower. Anyway, but anyway, there are all these jobs that you have to do, and this bringing it back to the idea of it being a business. There are these jobs and these things that you have to do to make sure that your channel is being recommended on people's sidebars or when people are searching for certain terms. If you want to be recommended, you have to be hitting these certain criteria that YouTube sets or TikTok sets or Instagram sets. Like, it's all based on algorithms and the things that they've decided they want to promote. The second place where you get a lot of pressure is from family and friends, or those people who are directly or indirectly involved in your channel. So it might be family who are giving you the space and to do the filming. So for instance, very rarely I have to film when my family around, so my husband has to take the kids, you know, so it's not noisy, or that's very rare. I tend to always keep my filming to when nobody's around. Or just in general, like your family who know that you're doing this and that you're spending your time on this, and they're asking questions like, are people watching you? Are you earning money from it? And these pressures from people who are indirectly related to your channel, there is pressure from them. But then I think one of the biggest things is your internalized pressure. So comparing yourself to others, to other channels, worrying what other people are thinking of you. Like, I think it's less necessarily what my friends and family think of my channel than what I perceive them to think of my channel. Yeah, like worrying that people think that I'm wasting my time because I'm not earning anything from it, when I do this because I enjoy doing it. I love making videos. I just want to clarify, my husband is really supportive of this. Check out this from when I was filming a book one. And You make me really embarrassed when you come in. I don't like it.
Give you a cup of tea.
Bye.
Oh.
Yeah, I think a big thing is that imposter syndrome of I'm not good enough. Like my content isn't as good. My edits aren't as clean. I've never felt so much pressure about whether my photographs are good enough because my whole channel is about learning. So I don't really care whether my photos are good enough or not. But yeah, there's like a lot of that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, a lot of internalized pressure. What I've done is I've written down sort of 3 facts or 3 truths about myself and my channel that I want to remind myself whenever I'm feeling these pressures. Number one, I am not just a photographer. I have many creative outlets, and so comparing myself to other photography channels and their growth or their success or their analytics or anything like that is completely redundant. There's no point in doing it because I am not producing the same content. There's definitely overlaps because photography is one of my creative outlets, but I have to remind myself that it doesn't matter when they're doing so much better than me. Number 2 is that I really enjoy talking about what I'm doing and what I'm learning. I used to do this via a learning log, which was schoolofholly at wordpress.com, which I still use occasionally for other bits and pieces, but for my photography, I've realised, and for my creative outlets, I realised that talking on video and sharing it via YouTube is the way that I enjoy doing it. I really enjoy as well speaking. So I've done the photography show 2 years in a row. I love talking about what I'm doing and what I'm learning and hoping to inspire others to do similar creative projects as well. That is something that I enjoy. I also love chatting with people in the comments. I've also had a few people who email me directly and we chat about different things, and I love that. That is one of my favourite things about running this channel. And I need to just remember that that is why I do it, and that I need to stop worrying about the analytics and the numbers and, yeah, whether I'm discoverable. It doesn't matter. As long as the people who are watching and who are engaging, I'm enjoying that part of it. That's the important bit. And then number 3, I am not a business. So I did try freelance for a year, and whilst I loved being able to do different creative projects and explore different things and taking that year to work out what it was that I liked doing, ultimately freelance is not for me, and trying to turn myself into a business is not something that I enjoy. And the main reason is that I hate to, like, a really internalized deep place. I hate self-promotion. I hate trying to put myself out there. And so it's never going to work for me because all the joy gets taken out of it in that idea of self-promotion and bigging my name up. I hate it. I just hate it. And so because I'm not a business, this is a hobby. And that means it doesn't matter if I'm not putting videos up every single week. It doesn't matter if they're not fantastically edited to within an inch of their life. Like, I can do what I'm enjoying, which is what I have been doing up till now. I think that's one thing I am pleased with myself, is that I've never put something out there that I really didn't like just because I felt like I had to. I think my natural instinct is to bury my head in the sand and not put the content out there, which I think is a good thing, but that does account for some of the gaps in my content, is when I go, no, this is too much pressure. So yeah, I think overall, all of those things come together just to say, this is about having fun, this is about experimenting and just sharing that, and really trying to avoid that pressure, whether external or internal, for this to become monetized or to perform like a business. Like, that's what I need to remind myself it isn't. Even that said, despite the fact that I sell these, but again, it's about enjoying the process. So there we have it. We have a couple of very tangible creative goals, and then we have more of a mental health, mental processing creative goal for the upcoming year. I'd really love to hear about your goals. Let me know. Let's chat in the comments.